What really happens when a son tries to rush his own inheritance on Christmas morning? 30 minutes after breakfast, an ambulance siren cut through the quiet street, and every face in the house changed. They still don't know why I calmly asked for a different cup. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. People think crane operators are simple. They see the height, the steady hands, the silence during lunch breaks, and they assume we don't notice much. My son Ethan used to tell his friends I was old school in a way that sounded like an insult wrapped in fondness. His wife Marla would smile when he said it, the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. I'm 56. I've operated cranes for 32 years. I've seen men lose fingers because they weren't paying attention, watched scaffolding collapse because someone rushed a weld, and learned that the difference between coming home and not coming home is noticing the small things. The things people ignore because they're in a hurry. Christmas morning started the way it always did. My mother Irene arrived at 7, carrying a casserole dish wrapped in foil. She moved slower these days, her hands shaking slightly as she set it on the counter, but her eyes were sharp. She looked at me the way she used to when I was 12 and lying about breaking her lamp. "You sleep okay?" she asked. "Fine," I said. She didn't believe me. I could tell by the way she turned toward the window, watching the street like she was expecting something. Ethan and Marla showed up an hour later. He was loud from the moment he stepped through the door, talking about traffic and the cold and how he'd almost forgotten the wine. Marla kissed my cheek and complimented the tree, though we both knew I'd bought it from the lot down the street 3 days ago and hadn't bothered with lights. "Dad, you gotta let me make the coffee this year," Ethan said, already moving toward the kitchen. "I've been working on this special brew. Got the beans from that place downtown. You're gonna love it." I didn't ask which place. I didn't ask what made it special. I just nodded and sat at the small dining table while my mother arranged plates and Marla set out napkins with too much precision. Ethan worked in the kitchen with his back to us. I heard the grinder, the hiss of the machine, the clink of mugs being pulled from the cabinet. His hands moved fast, but when he turned around holding 2 cups, I noticed the tremor in his fingers. Just a slight shake, the kind you'd miss if you weren't looking. He set 1 cup in front of me and kept the other for himself. "Cheers," he said, lifting his mug. I looked at the steam rising from the surface. The color was darker than usual, almost muddy. I glanced at his cup. Lighter. Normal. "You want cream?" Marla asked, standing too close to my chair. "I'm good," I said. Ethan sat down across from me, watching, waiting. His smile was tight, and his knee bounced under the table. My mother was quiet, folding and refolding the same napkin. I reached for the cup. Ethan leaned forward slightly, then I stopped. "Actually," I said, standing up slowly, "I'm going to grab a different mug. This one's chipped." It wasn't chipped. Ethan's face went blank for half a second, then he laughed. "Dad, it's fine. Just drink it." "Nah," I said, walking past him into the kitchen. "I don't like chipped mugs." I picked up his cup from the counter, the one he'd poured for himself. I brought it back to the table and sat down. Ethan stared at me. Marla stared at Ethan. "You switched them," he said quietly. "You made 2 cups," I replied. "I just took the other one." Nobody said anything. My mother looked down at her plate. Marla's jaw tightened. I took a sip. It tasted normal. Maybe a little bitter, but nothing strange. Ethan didn't touch his cup. He stood up quickly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I'm not feeling great. I think I'm going to lie down." Marla followed him out of the room without a word. I kept drinking my coffee. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my hand. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. 30 minutes later, we heard the crash. I found Ethan on the bathroom floor, convulsing. His eyes rolled back, foam at the corners of his mouth. Marla was screaming, her phone already dialing. I stood in the doorway and watched the scene unfold like I was back at the job site. Calm, observant. My mother appeared beside me, her hand gripping my arm. "What did he do?" she whispered. "He tried," I said. The ambulance came fast. 2 paramedics rushed in, asking questions, checking vitals, loading Ethan onto a stretcher. Marla rode with him, still screaming. I told them I'd follow in my truck. My mother and I stood on the porch as the ambulance pulled away, lights flashing red and blue across the snow. "You knew," she said. "I noticed," I corrected. She looked at me for a long time. Then she nodded. "What now?" "Now I wait," I said, "and I make sure it doesn't happen again." Respect is a funny thing. You can earn it over decades and lose it in a single sentence. With Ethan, I'm not sure I ever really had it to begin with. He was 10 when his mother passed. Car accident on a rainy Tuesday. One moment she was there, the next she wasn't. I did my best, packed lunches, showed up to school plays, taught him how to change a tire and fix a leaky faucet, but somewhere along the way, he stopped listening. By the time he hit 30, he looked at me like I was furniture. Something he'd inherited but didn't particularly want. It started small, comments about my work clothes. Dad, you smell like diesel again. Questions about my finances. You still putting money into that old pension? Suggestions about my house? You ever think about selling this place? It's got to be worth something. Marla made it worse. She was all smiles and politeness in public, but in private, she had a way of steering conversations. Rowan, have you thought about updating your will, just in case? Or, it must be hard working at your age. Don't they have younger guys for that? I let it slide, not because I didn't notice, but because I was waiting to see how far they'd go. The job site was different. Out there, people respected what I could do. I'd been a union crane operator since I was 24, and I'd worked my way up through every safety certification the state offered. When the new guys showed up, they were told to watch me, learn from me. I didn't talk much, but when I did, people listened. Ethan never cared about that. To him, I was just old. Last Thanksgiving, he made a joke at the dinner table. My mother was there, along with a couple of Marla's relatives. Someone asked what I did for work, and Ethan answered before I could. Oh, Dad drives a crane. Been doing it forever. He's basically a dinosaur at this point. Everyone laughed. Not cruel laughter, just polite acknowledgement of the joke. But I saw the way Marla looked at me, like I was already gone. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my garage workshop and went through my paperwork. Pension statements, bank accounts, insurance policies, the house deed. Everything was in order. Everything had my name on it. Ethan didn't know that I'd been union for over 3 decades. He didn't know that my pension was protected by contracts older than he was. He didn't know that I'd paid off the house 10 years ago, or that I had a lawyer I'd worked with since the 90s. He didn't know because he never asked. Marla, though, she asked. 2 months before Christmas, she started dropping by unannounced, always with some excuse, needed to borrow a tool, wanted to check on me, thought I might want company. She'd sit in my living room and ask questions, casual questions. How was I feeling? Was work getting harder? Did I ever think about retiring? I answered honestly. I felt fine. Work was the same as it always was. I'd retire when I was ready. She'd smile and nod and change the subject, but I saw the way her eyes moved around the room, taking inventory. One afternoon in early December, Ethan called me. Rare enough that I knew something was coming. Hey, Dad, listen. I've been thinking. You've worked hard your whole life. You deserve to relax. Marla and I were talking, and we thought maybe it's time you handed over some of the financial stuff. You know, so you don't have to stress about it. I'm not stressed, I said. Yeah, but you could be. I mean, you're getting older. It's a lot to manage. We just want to help. I'm good, I said. There was a pause. Then his voice shifted, harder. Dad, I'm trying to help you out here. Don't be stubborn. I'm not, I said. I'm just telling you I don't need help. He hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I called my union rep, asked him to pull my file, make sure everything was locked, no exceptions, no transfers, no surprises. He didn't ask why, he just said he'd take care of it. A week later, I went to see my lawyer, old guy named Vincent Hale, been practicing estate law for 40 years. He reviewed my will, my beneficiaries, my directives. Then he looked at me over his reading glasses. You worried about something, Rowan. Just want to make sure everything's clear, I said. He nodded slowly. You want to make changes? Not yet, I said, but I might need to, soon. He wrote down a number and slid it across the desk. Call me when you're ready. I kept that number in my wallet, right next to my union card. The hospital waiting room smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee. I sat in a plastic chair near the vending machines, my hands folded in my lap, while Marla paced near the nurse's station. She kept asking questions. How long until we know something? What did the doctor say? Why isn't anyone telling us anything? I didn't ask questions. I already knew most of the answers. Ethan had been rushed into the ER 40 minutes ago. The paramedics had stabilized him in the ambulance, but his vitals were erratic. Elevated heart rate, low oxygen, tremors. The attending physician had taken one look at him and ordered a full toxicology screen. Marla didn't know that yet. My mother had stayed behind at the house. She'd offered to come, but I told her to go home and rest. No point in both of us sitting here. She understood. Before she left, she'd hugged me tighter than usual and whispered, Be careful. I wasn't worried about being careful. I was worried about being right. A doctor finally emerged from the double doors. Young guy, maybe 35, wearing scrubs and a tired expression. He glanced at his clipboard, then at us. Family of Ethan Kepler? Marla rushed over. Yes, I'm his wife. This is his father. How is he? The doctor's face was neutral, professional. He's stable for now. We've administered fluids and medication to counteract the reaction. He's resting. Reaction to what? I asked. The doctor hesitated. We're still running tests, but based on his symptoms, it appears he ingested something that caused a severe physiological response. We'll know more once the toxicology report comes back. Marla's face went pale. Ingested? Like food poisoning? Possibly, the doctor said. Or something else. We're checking for a range of substances. Substances? Marla repeated, her voice rising. What are you saying? I'm saying we need to rule out certain possibilities, the doctor replied calmly. Has your husband taken any medication recently? Supplements? Anything unusual? Marla shook her head quickly. No, nothing. He's healthy. He doesn't take anything. The doctor made a note. And this morning? What did he eat or drink? Just breakfast, Marla said. Coffee, toast, normal stuff. The doctor looked at me. And you, sir? Same, I said. We all had the same thing. Did you experience any symptoms? No, I said. His pen hovered over the clipboard. Interesting. Marla's hands were shaking now. Can I see him? Not yet, the doctor said. We need to monitor him for a few more hours. I'll update you as soon as we know more. He walked away before either of us could respond. Marla turned to me, her eyes wet. I don't understand. He was fine this morning. He wasn't fine, I said quietly. He was shaking. What? His hands, I said. When he poured the coffee, they were shaking. Marla stared at me. So? So maybe he wasn't feeling well before breakfast, I said. Maybe that's why he wanted to lie down. Her jaw tightened. Or maybe something happened at breakfast. I held her gaze. Like what? She didn't answer. She turned and walked back to the nurse's station, her shoulders rigid. I sat back down and waited. An hour later, a nurse approached me. Older woman, kind eyes, the type who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything. Mr. Kepler? Yeah. The doctor asked me to give you this. She handed me a folded piece of paper. It's a copy of the intake notes. Sometimes families like to have them for records. I unfolded the paper. Standard medical jargon, vitals, observations, treatments administered. But near the bottom, one line stood out. Patient presents with symptoms consistent with acute substance ingestion. Toxicology screen ordered. Will monitor for complications. I folded the paper and tucked it into my jacket pocket. Thank you, I said. The nurse nodded. Your son's lucky. If he'd waited another 10 minutes to get here, it could have been a lot worse. Good thing we called fast, I said. She gave me a long look. Then she walked away. Marla didn't come back to sit with me. She stayed near the doors, watching, waiting. Every time a doctor or nurse passed, she asked for updates. They all gave her the same answer. Still waiting, still monitoring. We'll let you know. I didn't move. I just sat there, my hands folded, my mind working through the next steps. When the toxicology report came back, things would get complicated. There'd be questions, investigations, conversations with people who didn't know me and didn't care about the context. That was fine. I'd been preparing for complicated. I pulled out my phone and texted Vincent Hale, my lawyer. Need to meet, soon. He replied within 2 minutes. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office. I put the phone away and leaned back in my chair. Marla glanced at me from across the room. For a moment, our eyes met. Then she looked away. She knew something was wrong. She just didn't know what. Not yet. My garage workshop is where I keep everything that matters. Not sentimental things, practical things, files, records, proof. The morning after the hospital, I stood at my workbench and spread out 30 years of documentation. Union contracts, pay stubs, pension statements, insurance policies, the deed to the house, my will, dated and signed, bank statements showing every deposit, every withdrawal, every automatic payment. I wasn't sentimental about paperwork, but I respected it. Paper doesn't lie. It doesn't change its story or misremember details. It just sits there, waiting to be read. Ethan had been released from the hospital late the previous night. The doctors said he was stable, but they wanted him to follow up with his primary care physician. They'd given him a packet of discharge instructions and a copy of his toxicology report. I hadn't seen it yet. Marla had grabbed it before I could. That was fine. I'd get my own copy. I pulled out a yellow legal pad and started making a timeline. Every conversation, every request, every comment about my age, my work, my house, my finances. I wrote it all down, month by month, going back 2 years. November 2 years ago. Ethan asks if I've updated my will. March last year. Marla starts visiting unannounced, asking about my health. June. Ethan jokes about me not needing much longer. September. Marla asks if I've considered a retirement home. December. Ethan offers to take over my financial management. On Christmas morning, Ethan makes coffee, hands shaking. 2 cups, one for me, one for him, different colors. I circled that last entry. Then I started a second list. Institutional protections, things they couldn't touch even if they tried. Union pension, locked. Cannot be transferred or accessed without my signature. Bank accounts, primary holder, no joint access, no authorized users. House deed, my name only. Paid in full. Life insurance. Beneficiary listed as my mother. Ethan isn't on it. Will. Currently names Ethan as executor, but Vincent can change that. I underlined the last point twice. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. You okay? Call me when you can. I called her immediately. I'm fine, I said. You sure? That was a lot yesterday. I'm sure, I said. I'm just getting things in order. She was quiet for a moment. What are you planning? Nothing dramatic, I said. Just making sure everything's protected. Good, she said. You need me to do anything? Not yet, I said, but I might ask you to be a witness soon. For what? Legal stuff, I said. I'll explain later. All right, she said. Just be careful. Always am, I said. At 10 a.m., I walked into Vincent Hale's office. He was sitting behind his desk, reading glasses perched on his nose, a stack of papers in front of him. Rowan, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Sit. I sat. He removed his glasses and set them down. You sounded urgent. I need to make changes, I said. To my will and my estate directives. He picked up a pen. What kind of changes? Ethan is currently listed as executor. I want that removed. Vincent didn't react. Who do you want instead? You, I said. Or my mother, if she's willing. He made a note. Anything else? Beneficiary clauses. I want protections in place. If anything happens to me, I want an investigation. Automatic. No exceptions? Vincent looked up. That's unusual. I know, I said. He studied me for a moment. Then he nodded. I'll draft it. Should be ready in a week. Make it 3 days, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You in a hurry? Just cautious, I said. I handed him the hospital intake notes I'd gotten from the nurse. He read them slowly, his expression unreadable. You think your son tried to hurt you, he said. It wasn't a question. I think my son made a mistake, I said, and I think he's going to try to cover it up. Vincent set the paper down. You want legal protection. I want clarity, I said, and I want it documented. He nodded again. I'll take care of it. Vincent leaned back in his chair. Rowan, you've been my client for 20 years. I've never seen you move this fast on anything. What changed? I thought about the shaking hands, the switched cups, the ambulance lights flashing across the snow. I stopped waiting, I said. For what? For them to stop, I said. They're not going to, so I need to make sure they can't. Vincent wrote something down. All right, I'll have everything ready by Thursday. Come by at 2. After leaving Vincent's office, I drove to the Union Hall. My rep, a guy named Frank Delgado, met me in the conference room. He was younger than me, maybe 45, but he'd been with the union for 20 years. He knew the rules better than anyone. Rowan, he said, shaking my hand. You okay? Heard your son had a rough Christmas. He's fine, I said. I need to confirm something. Shoot. My pension, my benefits, my seniority. If something happens to me, who gets access? Frank frowned. Nobody. That's all tied to you. Only way it transfers is through legal inheritance, and even then, it's structured as a payout, not access. So if I passed, Ethan couldn't just take over? No. He'd get a payout based on the terms of your will, but he wouldn't get control of the pension itself. That stays with the union. I nodded. And my medical records from the job site physicals? Those are union property, Frank said. Confidential. Why? Just making sure everything's locked down, I said. Frank leaned back in his chair, studying me. Rowan, we've known each other a long time. Something's going on. You want to tell me what it is? I considered it. Frank was solid, trustworthy, but the fewer people who knew the details, the better. Family stuff, I said. Just want to make sure my work life stays separate. Fair enough, Frank said. But if you need anything, Union's got your back. That's what we're here for. I appreciate it, I said. Frank pulled out a form. Here, sign this. It's a beneficiary confirmation. Make sure everything's on record exactly the way you want it. I read it carefully, then signed. One more thing, Frank said. Your safety record. It's spotless. 32 years, no incidents. That's not common. If anyone ever questions your competence, that record speaks for itself. Good to know, I said. From the union hall, I went to the bank. I'd been with the same credit union for 30 years. The branch manager knew me by name. Rowan, she said, smiling. What can I do for you? I need to review my accounts, I said. All of them, and I need to confirm beneficiary information. She pulled up my file on her computer. Everything looks standard. Checking, savings, retirement account. Beneficiary is listed as Irene Kepler. Your mother, correct? Correct, I said. Any changes? Not today, I said, but I want to schedule a follow-up meeting next week. She made a note in her system. No problem. Anything specific you want to discuss? Estate planning, I said. Just want to make sure everything's in order. She nodded. Smart. A lot of people wait too long. One more thing, I said. If anyone calls asking about my accounts, can you flag it for me? She looked up. Is there a problem? Just being careful, I said. I can do that, she said. We'll make a note in your file. Any inquiries get reported to you first. Perfect, I said. I left the bank and sat in my truck for a few minutes, staring at the steering wheel. Everything was falling into place. The union had my back. The lawyer was handling the legal side. The bank was secure. Now I just needed to make sure Ethan and Marla knew they'd lost. I pulled out my phone and opened a new note. Started typing. Evidence needed, toxicology report, hospital copy. Witness statements, mother nurse, timeline documentation, texts, emails, financial inquiry records, bank union, medical assessment if challenged. I read it over twice, then saved it. My phone buzzed. A text from Marla. We need to talk. Can you call me? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I deleted it without responding. She texted again 5 minutes later. Rowan, please. Ethan's really shaken up. We just want to understand what happened. I turned off my phone and started the truck. They'd understand soon enough. I drove home, parked in the driveway, and went straight to the workshop. I pulled out the folder with all my documentation and added the notes from today. Union confirmation, bank security, legal changes in progress. Everything was documented. Everything was protected. I sat down at the workbench and looked at the calendar on the wall. Thursday, I'd sign the new estate documents. Next week, I'd finalize the bank details. And then, when everything was locked down, I'd call a family meeting. Not to reconcile, not to forgive, to end it. I pulled out my phone, turned it back on, and typed a message to the family group chat. Lunch at my place this Sunday, 1 p.m., need to talk. Everyone should be there. I hit send. Within 5 minutes, Marla replied. Is everything okay? I didn't answer. Ethan replied next. Dad, what's this about? I didn't answer. My mother replied last. I'll be there. I put the phone away and stood up. The workshop was quiet, organized, everything in its place, just the way I liked it. Sunday arrived cold and clear. I woke up early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table going over my plan one more time. Everything was ready. Vincent had finalized the paperwork on Thursday, exactly as promised. Frank had confirmed the union protections on Friday. The bank had locked my accounts on Saturday morning. I had copies of everything, organized in a folder on the counter. My mother arrived first. She let herself in through the back door, carrying a loaf of bread she'd baked the night before. You sure about this? She asked, setting the bread down. I'm sure, I said. She looked at me for a long moment, searching my face for doubt. She wouldn't find any. What do you need me to do? Just be here, I said. That's enough. She nodded slowly. They're going to push back. You know that. Let them, I said. She squeezed my hand, then walked into the living room to wait. I went back to the kitchen and poured myself another cup of coffee. My hands were steady. My mind was clear. I'd spent 2 weeks preparing for this moment, and I wasn't going to waste it. The house felt different today, quieter, like it was holding its breath. I looked around the kitchen, the same cabinets I'd painted 15 years ago, the same table where I'd eaten breakfast every morning for 3 decades, the same window that looked out onto the street where my wife used to watch for me coming home from work. This was mine, all of it, and I wasn't letting it go. At 12:50, I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I watched Ethan and Marla get out. They moved slowly, cautiously, like they were approaching something dangerous. Marla said something to Ethan. He shook his head. She gestured toward the house. He hesitated. They knew something was coming. They just didn't know what. I opened the door before they could knock. "Come in," I said. Ethan looked pale, thinner than he'd been 2 weeks ago. His eyes darted around the entryway like he was expecting an ambush. "Hey, Dad," he said quietly. Marla followed him in, her expression guarded. She didn't greet me, just glanced around the hallway like she was cataloging everything. "Living room," I said, gesturing down the hall. They followed me in silence. I'd set up the coffee table with 4 chairs around it. My mother was already seated in the corner, her hands folded in her lap, watching. Marla glanced at her, then at me. "What's this about?" "Sit," I said. Not a request. They sat. I remained standing for a moment, letting the silence build. Ethan shifted in his chair. Marla crossed her arms. My mother stayed perfectly still. Then I picked up the folder from the side table and set it on the coffee table between us. "After everything that happened on Christmas," I said, "I did some thinking about trust, about family, about what people are willing to do when they want something badly enough." Ethan's knee started bouncing under the table. "Dad, if this is about the hospital—" "It is," I said, "and it's about a lot more than that." I opened the folder and pulled out the first document, the hospital intake notes. "This is from Christmas morning," I said. "It shows that you, Ethan, had substances in your system that shouldn't have been there. The doctors ran a full toxicology screen, found things that don't appear in coffee." I set the paper down in front of him. Ethan stared at it, but didn't touch it. "I already told you, I don't know how that happened." "You don't know," I repeated. "That's interesting, because I do." Marla's jaw tightened. "You're accusing him again." "I'm stating facts," I said. "You made 2 cups of coffee that morning, Ethan. One for me, one for you. They weren't the same. Mine was darker. Yours was lighter." "You can't prove that," Marla said. I pulled out the second document, a written statement from my mother, dated and signed. "My mother was there," I said. "She saw the cups. She saw your hands shaking. She saw everything." Ethan's face went white. I kept going. "When I switched cups, you didn't drink yours. You said you weren't feeling well and went to lie down. 30 minutes later, you collapsed." "That doesn't mean—" Marla started. "Yes, it does," I said. "Because if those substances were meant for you, Ethan, you would have taken them before breakfast. You wouldn't have put them in coffee and waited until we were all sitting together. But you did, because they weren't meant for you." The room went silent. I pulled out the third document, the timeline I'd made. 2 years of conversations, requests, comments. "For 2 years," I said, "you've been asking about my finances, my health, my plans. You've been suggesting I step aside, let you take over. You've been treating me like I'm already gone." I spread the timeline across the table. "November, 2 years ago. You asked about my will. March, last year. Marla started visiting, asking if I needed help managing things. In June, you joked that I wouldn't need much longer. September, Marla suggested a retirement home. December, you offered to take over my financial management." I looked at Ethan. "And on Christmas morning, you made coffee." Ethan's hands were shaking now, the same way they'd shaken that morning. "I didn't—" he started. "Yes, you did," I said. "And you thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I was too old, too slow, too trusting. But I've been watching you for 2 years. Every comment, every suggestion, every time you looked at me like I was already gone." I pulled out the fourth document, the union confirmation. "My pension is locked," I said. "You can't access it. You can't transfer it. It's mine, and it stays mine." Then the fifth document, the bank statement. "My accounts are secure. No joint access. No authorized users. Everything stays in my name." Then the sixth, the deed to the house. "The house is paid off. It's mine. You're not on the deed. You never were." And finally, the last document, the revised will. "As of Thursday, you're no longer listed as executor of my estate. Vincent Hale is, And if anything happens to me, there will be an automatic investigation. No exceptions, no shortcuts. I let that sink in. Marla stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You can't do this. We're family. Family doesn't try to rush an inheritance, I said. We didn't. Yes, you did, I said. And now everyone knows. Ethan finally spoke, his voice barely audible. Dad, please. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was stressed about money, and You tried to hurt me, I said. That's not stress. That's a choice. He looked down at the table, his shoulders slumping. I'm sorry. That doesn't change anything, I said. Marla grabbed Ethan's arm. We should go. Not yet, I said. I pulled out one more paper, a restraining order, already filed. If you contact me again without my permission, there will be legal consequences. If you try to challenge any of these changes, Vincent will take it to court. And if you try anything else, the toxicology report goes to the police. I set the restraining order on top of the pile. You wanted my house, my pension, my accounts. You wanted everything I've built over 30 years. You wanted me gone, but I'm still here. And everything I've built stays with me. I stepped back and looked at them both. Now you can go. Marla stood up quickly, pulling Ethan with her. He stumbled, his legs unsteady, and she had to support him. They moved toward the door without speaking. At the threshold, Ethan turned back. His eyes were red. Dad! Don't, I said. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something else, then closed it. They left. The door closed behind them, and the house fell silent. My mother stood up slowly and walked over to me. She didn't say anything. She just put her hand on my shoulder and stood there. I picked up the folder and carried it back to the workshop. I filed it next to all the other documentation. 32 years of union records, decades of careful planning, a lifetime of paying attention. Everything was protected now. Everything was in order. I went back to the kitchen and poured another cup of coffee. My mother joined me at the table. You did the right thing, she said. I know, I said. You think they'll leave you alone? Eventually, I said. They don't have a choice. She nodded. What now? Now I go back to work, I said. Back to normal. She smiled faintly. You've earned it. We sat in silence for a while, drinking coffee, watching the afternoon light filter through the kitchen window. The house settled around us, peaceful, safe. When she left, I stood at the window and looked out at the street. The world kept moving. People passed by, unaware of what had just happened. That was fine. They didn't need to know. I knew, and that was enough. I walked back to the workshop one more time and looked at the folder on the shelf. Everything documented, everything protected, everything exactly where it needed to be. I turned off the light and closed the door. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work. The crane would be waiting, the crew would be ready, life would continue, and I'd still be standing. The week after the confrontation was quiet. Too quiet. I expected phone calls, lawyers, angry texts. Instead, nothing. Ethan and Marla disappeared. No messages, no attempts to reach out. Just silence. I didn't trust it. Every morning, I checked my phone for new messages. Every afternoon, I checked the mail for legal notices. Every evening, I reviewed my documentation to make sure nothing had changed. Nothing did. But the silence felt wrong, like the calm before a collapse. I'd seen it before on job sites. Everything would be fine, everyone would be working, and then someone would notice a bolt missing or a cable fraying, and suddenly everyone would scatter because they knew what was coming. This felt like that. I went to work Monday like nothing had happened, showed up at 6 a.m., climbed into the crane, and started the first lift of the day. The familiar weight of the controls in my hands, the steady hum of the engine, the precision of the movement, it was the only thing that felt normal. Travis came over during lunch break. You doing okay? Heard you had some family stuff going on. It's handled, I said. He nodded. Good. We need you around here. I appreciated that. The job site was the one place where people still saw me for what I could do, not what I had. On Thursday, I got a call from Vincent. Rowan, we need to talk. I was at the kitchen table, going through the newspaper. What's wrong? Marla hired a lawyer, filed a complaint yesterday claiming you coerced Ethan into signing documents under duress. She's trying to contest the estate changes. I set the paper down. Can she do that? She can try, Vincent said, but she won't win. We have documentation, we have witnesses, and we have the toxicology report. If she pushes this, it's going to get very public, very fast. Let it, I said. Vincent paused. You sure? This could get ugly. Court hearings, testimony. Everything you did will be examined. I'm sure, I said. If she wants a fight, she'll get one. All right, Vincent said. I'll start preparing a response. In the meantime, don't talk to them. Don't respond to anything. Let me handle it. I will, I said. I hung up and stared at the phone. So that was it? Marla wasn't backing down. She was going to try to drag this through the courts, trying to make me look incompetent or unstable. Fine, let her try. I called Frank at the union hall. Rowan, he said. What's up? Marla's contesting the estate changes, says I was coerced. Frank let out a low whistle. She's got guts, I'll give her that. What do you need? Vincent says we might need testimony, people who can vouch for my competence. Done, Frank said. I'll testify. So will Travis. And probably a dozen other guys from the site. You're one of the most reliable operators we've got. Anyone who says otherwise is lying. Appreciate it, I said. You want me to pull your safety record? Might help? Yeah, I said. That'd be good. I'll have it by tomorrow, Frank said. Hang in there, Rowan. We got your back. I hung up and sat back in my chair. The union, the lawyer, my mother, people who knew me, people who'd seen me work, people who understood that competence isn't about age, it's about attention. On Friday, Frank called again. Rowan, I'm hearing things. What kind of things? Word is, Ethan's been talking to people, saying you're losing it, that you're paranoid, that you're making up stories to cut him out of your will. I leaned back in my chair. He's trying to discredit me. Yeah, Frank said. And it might work if people don't know the full story. You need to get ahead of this. How? Union meeting next week. Safety committee. You're scheduled to present the annual report anyway. Use that. Let people see you, let them hear you. Show them you're sharp. I'm not giving a speech about my family, I said. You don't have to, Frank said. Just show up, do your job, let your reputation speak for itself. I thought about it. Frank was right. The best way to counter Ethan's lies was to show people the truth, not through words, but through action. All right, I said. The union meeting was on Tuesday. I arrived early, carrying the safety report I'd been preparing for months. The room filled up fast. Crane operators, welders, electricians, site supervisors, people I'd worked with for decades. Frank introduced me. Rowan Kepler's been with us for 32 years. He's seen more job sites than most of us combined. When he talks, we listen. I stood up and walked to the front of the room. I didn't have notes. I didn't need them. This year, we had 43 incidents across 12 sites, I said. 3 of them could have been fatal. They weren't because people followed protocol. They paid attention. They didn't rush. I walked them through the data, incident types, causes, outcomes, prevention strategies. I kept my voice steady, my explanations clear. I answered questions without hesitation. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in. Frank stood up. That's the kind of leadership we need. Thanks, Rowan. I sat back down. A few people came over afterward to shake my hand. One of the younger guys, a welder named Travis, leaned in close. Hey, I heard your son's been talking. Just want you to know, nobody here believes that nonsense. I nodded. Appreciate it. You need anything? You let us know, Travis said. Another operator, an older guy named Mitchell, came over. Rowan, I've worked with you for 15 years. You're the sharpest guy on any site. Don't let anyone tell you different. Thanks, Mitchell, I said. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. You think you're so smart. You're not. We're not done. I stared at the message for a moment. The tone was Marla's. The anger barely contained. I didn't respond. I just forwarded the message to Vincent. He called me 5 minutes later. That's harassment. I'm filing it with the court. If she keeps this up, she's going to lose any credibility she had. Good, I said. Rowan, I need to ask. Are you okay? This is a lot. I'm fine, I said. I've been through worse. I believe you, Vincent said. But if it gets to be too much, say something. I will, I said. But I wouldn't. Because the truth was, this wasn't too much. This was exactly what I'd been preparing for. Every conversation, every document, every strategic decision. Ethan and Marla thought they were fighting me. They weren't. They were fighting 30 years of careful planning, and they were losing. 2 weeks after the union meeting, Vincent called me into his office again. We got a court date, he said. Marla's pushing forward with the complaint. She's claiming undue influence, coercion, and mental incompetence. I sat down. Mental incompetence? She's arguing that you're not in a sound state of mind to make legal decisions. She wants a judge to review your recent changes and potentially reverse them. I felt my jaw tighten. On what basis? On the basis that you've become paranoid, isolated, and irrational following a family dispute. She's got a psychologist willing to testify that your behavior fits a pattern of age-related cognitive decline. I stared at him. She hired a psychologist who's never met me? Apparently, Vincent said. It's a stretch, but judges have to take these claims seriously. We'll need to prove you're of sound mind. How? Cognitive assessment, independent evaluation, testimony from people who work with you. Frank's already offered to testify on your behalf, so have 3 other union members. And my mother? She'll testify too, Vincent said, but Marla's going to argue that she's biased. I leaned back in the chair. What are our chances? Good, Vincent said. Better than good, actually. We have documentation, witnesses, and a clear timeline showing that your decisions were informed and rational. But we need to be prepared. Marla's lawyer is sharp. She's going to try to make you look unstable. Then we'll prove I'm not, I said. The cognitive assessment happened 3 days later. A psychologist named Dr. Raymond Casper met me at Vincent's office. He was in his 60s, calm and professional, with a briefcase full of tests. Mr. Kepler, I'm going to ask you a series of questions and give you some tasks to complete. Just answer honestly. There's no right or wrong here. All right, I said. He started with basic memory tests. Recall lists of words, identify patterns, solve simple math problems. Then he moved on to situational questions. How would you handle this scenario? What would you do in this situation? I answered everything clearly and methodically. No hesitation, no confusion. After an hour, Dr. Casper closed his notebook and looked at me. Mr. Kepler, I see no indication of cognitive decline. Your memory is sharp. Your reasoning is sound. You're well within normal parameters for your age group. Good, I said. I'll submit my findings to the court, he said. For what it's worth, I think you are going to be fine. The court hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. Vincent warned me that it might get uncomfortable. Marla's lawyer is going to try to provoke you, make you angry, make you look unstable. Don't take the bait. Just answer the questions calmly and stick to the facts. I can do that, I said. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Just a judge, a court reporter, 2 tables for the lawyers, and a handful of seats for witnesses and observers. Marla and Ethan sat on the left side with their lawyer, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and an expensive suit. Vincent and I sat on the right. The judge, an older man named Whitman, called the hearing to order. This is a petition filed by Marla Kepler contesting recent estate changes made by Rowan Kepler. Ms. Kepler claims that the changes were made under duress and without sound judgment. Mr. Hale, you're representing the respondent. Please proceed. Vincent stood up. Your Honor, we're here today to demonstrate that Mr. Kepler is fully competent, that his decisions were informed and voluntary, and that this petition is without merit. Marla's lawyer, Ms. Brennan, stood next. Your Honor, we'll show that Mr. Kepler's recent behavior has been erratic and paranoid, and that he's been unduly influenced by outside parties to cut his son out of his rightful inheritance. The judge nodded. Let's hear the evidence. Ms. Brennan called Marla to the stand first. She walked up calmly, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. Mrs. Kepler, can you describe your relationship with your father-in-law? It's always been good, Marla said. We've been close. I've tried to help him as he's gotten older, make sure he's taken care of. And how did he respond to your help? At first he appreciated it, but over the past few months he's become distant, suspicious. He started accusing us of things that weren't true. What kind of things? He claimed we were trying to take his money, that we were plotting against him. It didn't make sense. We just wanted to help. And on Christmas morning, what happened? Marla's voice wavered slightly. My husband made coffee for everyone. It's something he does every year. But this time, Rowan accused him of trying to poison him. He switched cups, and then Ethan got sick. Do you believe your father-in-law's accusations have any basis in reality? No, Marla said firmly. I think he's confused, and I think someone's been feeding him these ideas. Vincent stood up. Objection, speculation. Sustained, the judge said. Stick to facts, Ms. Brennan. Ms. Brennan nodded. No further questions. Vincent approached the stand. Mrs. Kepler, you said you've always had a good relationship with Mr. Kepler. Is that accurate? Yes, Marla said. Then why, in the past 2 years, have you repeatedly asked about his finances, his will, and his retirement plans? Marla hesitated. I was just concerned. Concerned about what? His health, his ability to manage things. Did he ever ask for your help? No, but so you initiated these conversations without his request? I was trying to be helpful. Vincent picked up a piece of paper from the table. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence a timeline of conversations between Mrs. Kepler and Mr. Kepler, documented through text messages and witness testimony. The judge reviewed it. Admitted. Vincent handed a copy to Marla. Mrs. Kepler, does this accurately reflect the frequency and nature of your inquiries? Marla glanced at the paper. I suppose. 23 conversations in 2 years, all focused on financial matters. Does that seem helpful, or does it seem like something else? Marla didn't answer. No further questions, Vincent said. The second day of the hearing started with Ethan on the stand. He looked worse than he had in the courtroom lobby. His face was drawn, his hands fidgeting with the edge of his jacket. Marla sat behind him, her expression tight. Ms. Brennan stood up. Mr. Kepler, can you describe your relationship with your father? Ethan cleared his throat. It's been good. I mean, we've had our ups and downs, but he's my dad. I care about him. And in recent months, have you noticed any changes in his behavior? Yeah, Ethan said. He's become more withdrawn, more suspicious. He started accusing me of things that didn't make sense. Such as? He said I was after his money, that I was trying to hurt him. It wasn't true. I just wanted to help. On Christmas morning, what happened? Ethan's voice dropped. I made coffee. I always make coffee when we visit. I made 2 cups, one for him and one for me. He took mine, then he accused me of trying to poison him. And what happened next? I got sick, really sick. I had to go to the hospital. Do you believe your father intentionally caused you harm? Ethan hesitated. I don't think he meant to. I think he was confused. Vincent stood up for cross-examination. Mr. Kepler, you said you made 2 cups of coffee that morning. Were they identical? Yeah, Ethan said. Identical in every way? Yes. Vincent picked up a photograph from the table. Your Honor, I'd like to enter hospital records showing the results of Mr. Ethan Kepler's toxicology screen from Christmas morning. The judge reviewed it. Admitted. Vincent handed a copy to Ethan. Mr. Kepler, this report shows that you had substances in your system that morning. Substances that don't appear in coffee. Can you explain that? Ethan's face went pale. I don't know. Maybe I took something by mistake. By mistake? I don't remember. You don't remember taking something that caused you to collapse and require emergency medical treatment? No. Vincent leaned forward. Or did you intend to give those substances to someone else and accidentally consume them yourself when your father switched cups? Ms. Brennan stood up. Objection. Leading. Overruled, the judge said. Answer the question, Mr. Kepler. Ethan's hands were shaking. I didn't. Mr. Kepler, if those substances were in your system, they had to come from somewhere. Either you took them intentionally or someone gave them to you. Which was it? I don't know, Ethan said, his voice barely audible. No further questions, Vincent said. After Ethan stepped down, Vincent called Frank Delgado to the stand. Mr. Delgado, how long have you known Rowan Kepler? 20 years, Frank said. He's been a union member the entire time I've been a rep. Can you describe his professional demeanor? Rowan's one of the sharpest guys on any site. He follows protocol, he pays attention, he's the one people go to when they have questions. Have you noticed any decline in his abilities? No, Frank said firmly. If anything, he's more reliable than most of the younger guys. Would you trust him to operate heavy machinery? Absolutely. Would you trust him to make sound decisions about his own life? Without question. Ms. Brennan stood for cross-examination. Mr. Delgado, you're friends with Mr. Kepler, correct? I know him professionally. But you'd say you have a positive relationship? Yeah. So you're biased. I'm honest, Frank said. And honestly, Rowan Kepler is one of the most competent people I've ever worked with. Ms. Brennan sat down without further questions. Vincent called Dr. Casper next. He presented his findings clearly and methodically. Cognitive function normal, memory intact, reasoning sound, no indication of decline. Ms. Brennan tried to challenge him. Dr. Casper, isn't it possible that someone could perform well on a test but still exhibit irrational behavior in other contexts? It's possible, Dr. Casper said, but unlikely. The assessments I conducted are designed to reveal patterns of decline. I saw none. Finally, Vincent called me to the stand. I placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Vincent started gently. Mr. Kepler, can you describe your relationship with your son? It's complicated, I said. I love him. But over the past 2 years, he's made it clear he doesn't respect me. How so? Comments about my age, questions about my finances, suggestions that I should step aside and let him handle things. Did you ever ask for his help? No. Did you ever feel threatened? I paused. Not physically, but I felt like I was being erased, like he was waiting for me to disappear so he could take over. And on Christmas morning, what made you switch cups? His hands were shaking, I said, and the coffee in my cup looked different from his, darker. I didn't think about it, I just acted. Do you believe your son intended to harm you? I looked directly at the judge. I believe he made a choice, and when it backfired, he tried to blame me. Ms. Brennan stood up for cross-examination. Mr. Kepler, you've made serious accusations against your son. Do you have proof? I have the toxicology report, I said. That proves your son had substances in his system. It doesn't prove he intended them for you. It proves he lied, I said. He said the cups were identical. They weren't. How do you know? Because I drank from one and felt fine. He drank from the other and collapsed. Ms. Brennan frowned. Isn't it possible you're misremembering? That you've convinced yourself of a narrative that isn't true? No, I said. I remember everything. Even though you're 56 and under stress? Especially because I'm 56, I said. I've spent my entire career paying attention to details other people miss. That's how you stay alive on a job site, and that's how I knew something was wrong that morning. Ms. Brennan sat down. The judge looked at both lawyers. Anything else? Vincent stood. Your Honor, I'd like to submit a final piece of evidence. A statement from Irene Kepler, Mr. Kepler's mother, who was present on Christmas morning and corroborates his account. The judge reviewed it. Admitted. We'll reconvene tomorrow for closing arguments. The final day of the hearing felt different. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread. Union members showed up. People from the job site. Even a few neighbors. Ethan and Marla sat alone on their side of the room. No supporters, no family. The judge called the hearing to order. Ms. Brennan stood first for closing arguments. Your Honor, we've heard testimony today that paints a picture of a man under stress. A man who's lost his wife, who's aging, who's being isolated from his family. Mr. Kepler's actions may seem logical to him, but they're based on suspicion and fear, not fact. We ask the court to recognize that he's not in a position to make sound decisions about his estate and to restore his son's rightful place as executor. She sat down. Vincent stood. Your Honor, we've heard testimony from professionals, colleagues, and family members, all of whom confirm that Rowan Kepler is sharp, competent, and fully capable of managing his own affairs. What Ms. Brennan calls suspicion, I call awareness. What she calls fear, I call self-preservation. Mr. Kepler didn't isolate himself from his family. His family isolated him by treating him as an obstacle rather than a person. The evidence is clear, the toxicology report, the timeline of conversations, the documented attempts to access his finances without his consent. This isn't about age or competence, it's about respect, and Mr. Kepler has every right to decide who deserves his trust. Vincent sat down. The judge reviewed his notes for a long moment. Then he looked up. I've reviewed the evidence, the testimony, and the assessments. It's clear to me that Mr. Rowan Kepler is of sound mind and fully capable of making informed decisions about his estate. The petition filed by Mrs. Marla Kepler is denied. The changes made to Mr. Kepler's will and estate directives will stand. Furthermore, I'm ordering an investigation into the events of December 25th. The toxicology report raises serious questions that warrant further examination. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down. Marla's face went white. Ethan slumped in his chair. Ms. Brennan gathered her papers quickly, whispering something to them both before walking out. I stood up slowly. Vincent shook my hand. You did it, he said. We did it, I corrected. Frank came over and clapped me on the shoulder. Never doubted you for a second. My mother was waiting near the door. She didn't say anything. She just hugged me. As we walked out of the courtroom, I saw Ethan standing near the exit. He looked at me, his face hollow. Dad, he said quietly. I stopped. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean... Yes, you did, I said. And now you have to live with it. I walked past him without another word. 3 days after the hearing, I scheduled one final meeting. Not at Vincent's office, not at the Union Hall, at my house. I sent a single message to the family group chat. Sunday, 1 p.m., final business. Ethan and Marla arrived looking defeated. They didn't speak as they entered. My mother sat in the corner, silent and watchful. Vincent stood near the window with a folder. I gestured to the chairs. Sit. They sat. I placed the toxicology report on the table between us, then the hospital records, then the timeline of their financial inquiries, Then the estate documents showing every change I'd made. "This is what you wanted," I said. "Access, control, everything I built over 30 years. Ethan stared at the papers, but said nothing. "The judge ruled in my favor," I continued. "The estate is locked. The pension is protected. The house stays mine. But that's not why we're here." Marla's eyes narrowed. "Then why?" I leaned forward. "Because I want you to understand something. You didn't lose because I outsmarted you. You lost because I paid attention. While you were planning, I was watching. While you were talking, I was listening. And when you made your move, I was ready." Ethan's voice cracked. "We didn't—" "Yes, you did," I said. "The toxicology report proves it. The switched cups prove it. Your hands shaking that morning prove it. You put something in my coffee, and when I took yours instead, you drank it yourself." The room went silent. Vincent stepped forward and placed one more document on the table. "This is a restraining order, effective immediately. You're prohibited from contacting Mr. Kepler, entering his property, or making any claims against his estate. Violation will result in criminal charges." Marla stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "You can't do this." "It's already done," Vincent said. I looked at Ethan one last time. "You wanted me gone. You wanted everything I had, but you forgot something. I've been working with my hands my entire life. I know how to build. I know how to protect what I've built. And I know how to recognize when someone's trying to tear it down." I stood up and walked to the door, opening it. "Get out." They left without another word. When the door closed, my mother walked over and squeezed my hand. Vincent gathered his papers. Frank, who'd been waiting outside, came in and nodded once. "It's over?" Vincent said. "No," I said, looking at the document spread across the table. "It's finished." I picked up the folder, carried it to my workshop, and filed it away with everything else. 32 years of union records, decades of careful planning, a lifetime of noticing what others missed. The next morning, I went back to work. The crane was waiting. The crew was ready. Everything was exactly as it should be. I climbed into the operator's seat, started the engine, and lifted the first load of the day. Steady, controlled, precise, just like always.